Hello film fans and welcome to this episode of the Sherlockian. Now, this week the third episode of Wild Isles dropped, and as is now becoming standard, I decided to do another episode review. And I must admit, I quite enjoyed this one. I think it's partly to do with the fact that I live in the south of England, and as this episode focused on grasslands, which there are quite a lot of grassland habitats quite near where I live on the South Downs, I think it sort of had a sort of an additional appeal to me this episode, and it was quite a lot of really good stuff. The first thing that comes to mind about this episode is the bit with the hares and the eagle hunting them in it. The bit with the hares is absolutely gorgeous. I particularly like the bit with them boxing, which I always assumed, not before watching this show, but for quite a long time, I always assumed that was the males kind of fighting, but it turns out that that's actually the way the sort of female decides whether the male is kind of an appropriate mate or not, which is actually quite a complicated and effective system when you think about it. Because if the male is too weak, then obviously it's not going to make a very good potential father for the offspring, genetically speaking. But if obviously it's too aggressive, then that means that the chances of them getting hurt during mating becomes increased. So it's actually quite an effective way of kind of working out how to try and get the best partner. It's really quite clever when you think about it. After quite a few shots of the hares sort of chasing each other and boxing, then it had the footage of the eagle hunting, which is absolutely amazing. The eagle hunt itself is absolutely fantastic. You sort of see the eagle flush the hare out into the open, and then you see the hare dodge and turn, and it really gives you a sense of how fast golden eagles are. I think they're supposed to be, although it's obviously quite difficult to measure, the second fastest bird on Earth. And you get the sense that the hare, if it ran in a straight line, would just be blitzed by the eagle. So it just keeps turning and jinking, and the eagle's almost at sort of stalling speed, trying to sort of fly slow enough to keep up with it. And then right at the end, you think that the hare is just about to get absolutely mullered by this eagle. It suddenly just turns on, almost on a sixpence, and it goes in the complete opposite direction, and the eagle misses and lands. And it's absolutely fantastic. Now, this is possibly a slightly controversial thing to say, so I hope you'll bear with me. But if you enjoyed that and thought that was amazing, there are some absolutely fantastic videos on YouTube shot by falconers who hunt hares with golden eagles in Scotland. Obviously, hunting is quite an emotive issue. I imagine if you watch this channel, you quite like animals, as do I. So hunting might not possibly be a thing you particularly approve of, but obviously falconry is the most natural way of hunting anyway. And these videos do show that kind of hunt in absolutely brilliant footage, and it shows exactly the same kind of thing, of the sort of hare dodging and jinking and turning, and the eagle trying to catch up with it. I remember seeing one particular clip where the hare actually jumps all up over the top of the eagle. It's absolutely incredible, and escapes as the eagle comes in to attack it. So if it was something you really enjoyed watching, it's worth checking them out if you want to see further clips of that kind of thing. But moving on, going from golden eagles, which they seem very keen on in this particular series. I don't think I've ever seen. I think every single episode so far has had a golden eagle in it. I don't mind, because I mean I quite enjoy watching golden eagles. But going from sort of big, impressive wildlife to much smaller ones, there was this great scene in this one of a little, I think it's a large blue butterfly caterpillar. And it was incredible how I'd heard about this behaviour before, but never seen it filmed. Of how they basically con ants into thinking that they're ant queens. So basically, they kind of inflate themselves to make them look bigger, and they produce the right kind of pheromones, the kind of chemical messengers that the ants pick up on. So it fools the worker ants into thinking that they're a queen ant. They take them back to their nest, and then they just sort of roam round the nest, eating all the ant larvae. And it's absolutely incredible. And the bit particularly where the ant first engaged with it, and it sort of reared up and sort of inflated itself, it looked to me a little bit like the scene from Alien. it did quite remind me of that. And also the noise it makes is absolutely fantastic. I'll try and put a clip in it so you can listen to it, because it sounds like something out of this world. So yeah, it's absolutely incredible. And it obviously showcased this entire. I'd be fascinated to know how they filmed it, because it must have taken them forever with kind of macro cameras really close up on the ant nest, and it would be fascinating to see actually how they'd filmed it. Um, and it's nice to know as well that the butterfly species, the large blue, is actually doing quite well after becoming extinct. Its life cycle is absolutely amazing, and the idea of sort of carnivorous caterpillars is something that's quite creepy about it. We don't think of butterflies generally, do we, as being sort of aggressive creatures? We think of them as being pretty and sort of elegant, flitting from flower to flower. But no, apparently you get really scary carnivorous ones that trick ants and then feast on their young. And then the final bit that really appealed to me in this episode was the bit with the stags fighting. I mentioned last time that I found the bit with the fallow deer in the last episode a bit rubbish, really. I mean, it wasn't actually rubbish of some kind. It wasn't rubbish. It was a bit ordinary. This one's far better because it's shot on this amazing, like, rewilded landscape in Ireland and County Kerry, I think it was. Um, with all these incredible kind of like watery sort of it's almost like marshland, and they got this incredible footage of these red deer stags fighting in the water. I've talked about it quite a lot, particularly in my trailer review, of how excited I was to see this, and it was pretty good. The bits that impressed me most were actually the bits they kind of recorded the stags roaring at each other. The vibrations actually, I don't know whether it's just my headphones, but it really kind of reverberated, and it felt almost like you were there. It felt almost a bit scary. It was absolutely brilliant and atmospheric. And then the bit when they actually fight in the water, there's spray kind of coming up all over the place, and they're charging around. And there's just one bit where they sort of stand, their horns locked, and you see the water just streaming down their coats, and then they start fighting again. Yeah, it was quite gripping, really, and exciting. I really really enjoyed watching it. It did, I think, just about live up to the hype it had in my head when I saw it in the trailer, which is brilliant. Actually, another bit I quite enjoyed was the bit with the foxes in it. I mean, I've been quite cynical when reviewing this series, and I've made a few sort of snarky comments about the fact that they keep going on about how brilliant British wildlife is, but they do lack the large predators to film. I think that's possibly why there's been so many shots of golden eagles, because it's really the only large, impressive predator we've got in this country. Oh, apart from the orcas in the first episode. Um, but yeah, that's probably why. I mean, other than that, the biggest predator, really, if you don't count seals, is the red fox. But the scene with the foxes hunting rabbits was actually quite cool. It's shot in that kind of starlight camera, which they tend to use nowadays. They've kind of almost moved on a bit, haven't they, from that old Carl night vision camera, when it still looked like normal footage, just sort of in that sort of weird kind of grey, greeny glow. Now it looks it's incredible, really. Kind of, all the animals kind of look almost like silhouettes. It's not quite, thermal, but they all look kind of silvery. It's really cool. And the bit when you see the fox hunting the rabbit and sort of digging it out of its warren and grabbing it, that look was actually quite exciting. I mean, I didn't think I'd ever say that about foxes, because they're quite ordinary and very, 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 very widespread in Britain. You see them all the time. Um, and but what's quite fascinating as well is the bit with the fox cubs and playing with each other, and they mouthing at the vixen to feed them, and then the bit when they were actually playing with the rabbit. That was quite cool as well. I particularly enjoyed the fact that there must be some kind of thermal technology that kind of in those night vision cameras, because the rabbit actually looks dark almost into the background, because of course it's dead, so that there's no kind of, I suppose, heat signal to pick up on, and then the fox cubs look grey, so that was kind of quite cool. And the bit with them playing with it when it was dead, obviously not when it was alive, was also quite sweet. Yeah, I mean, I was a little bit harsh about the bit with the fox cubs in the first episode, because I said, were, I don't know, foreign, particularly American audiences really going to be that impressed by fox cubs? But this bit, I think they might have been, or at least found them cute and cuddly to watch. It was absolutely brilliant, and I really enjoyed watching it. Anyway, thinking about next week, I mean, we've got the osprey scene to look forward to, which was also in the trailer, and it's absolutely brilliant. I'm really, really excited to see that. I hope it's quite long, because that'd be really cool. I suspect as well they might possibly return to the kingfishers they filmed in the first episode. They're possibly not. But look, I'm just really looking forward to it. It's going to be great. I mean, also the bit with the salmon leaping up the waterfall, which they've clearly kind of filmed really close in, that looks really cool as well. Um, so yeah, I'm quite hyped for the episode on water. I think it's going to be really good. Anyway, thanks very much for watching. If you've enjoyed this episode, do feel free to subscribe to the channel. You can obviously click down below on the subscribe button. You can also follow me on Twitter. There's a link in the description in the video. And also there's also some links I'll put in as well to the other videos in this series of just reviewing the different episodes of Wild Isles. But yeah, thanks very much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Goodbye.